Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Thanks for Stopping By. Today is a Sunday episode, so I have a special guest on with me today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, how's everybody doing? My name is Gabe Jimenez, professional wrestler. Wrestle as the Big Ugly JD Bishop. I also coach high school football and do various other things around the community.
Right. We're going to get into all of that throughout the episode, but the first thing I want to talk about was obviously, like you said right at the beginning, you're a professional wrestler. Before we delve into your personal wrestling history, I wanted to kind of get some quick thoughts on this past Wrestlemania. You know, we're obviously all in quarantine, and this was sort of the first empty arena kind of Mania. So I wanted to see how you thought about it. You know, if you thought they should have pushed it or anything like that.
Well, I have a different outlook than a lot of people, just because I'm a different person, and also because I'm in the business somewhat.
Right.
I think that it probably should have waited. The biggest thing with Wrestlemania, along with wrestling, is the fans. There's just some things you can't substitute for. And WrestleMania, let's face it, is based off the entrances.
Right.
That's probably why Triple H didn't perform this year, because he couldn't get his movie-style entrance or the overdone entrance.
Right.
But without the fans, it's like you're wrestling a training match at school, and I understand that the show needs to go on, and those people that worked on the show did an amazing job, and they worked hard. But, WrestleMania is full of moments, and wrestlers, one of the things we talk about is having your WrestleMania moment, and a lot of people, such as Drew McIntyre, had the moment taken away from him, I think. I mean, yes, he did beat Brock Lesnar on WrestleMania, but it's in front of nobody,
Right.
And I make the point out when you watch all these guys have their moments and they're in the ring and the confetti's coming down, the fans are cheering, going crazy. That's the moment, not just winning it and saying you won it at WrestleMania, but doing it in front of 80,000 people is the moment you have,
Right.
And I think he got that kind of taken away from him. But in his defense, the wrestling business, if you don't get it now, it may not happen later. So
Right.
he pushes that match off and say, well, we'll wait till WrestleMania. We can do it in front of a live crowd. He gets hurt, it doesn't happen, or they change their mind, it doesn't happen. So, and wrestling, there's this thing we say: if somebody offers you a title shot and you have to go in for surgery, you win the title, and then you take your surgery.
Right.
At least you can say you won the belt.
You got that moment, sort
that
of.
moment. So, I don't know. I think it had its ups and downs. I thought it was done really well.
Right.
A lot of the wrestling was good. Obviously, for me, the match of the night was the three-way from Morrison and Kofi.
Yeah, they did some
Uso.
crazy shit.
Insane, obviously everybody knows I have a connection with Johnny, but he just worked his butt off, man. He did a great job in that match, and it was awesome. He just came back, and to do that was just phenomenal, man. I thought they worked it really well, and if there was 90,000 people there, it would have been insane,
Right.
But no, I just thought it was done really well, and I really, like I said, I was cool with it. The first night I wasn't too happy with, but the second night I definitely thought was a way better show.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think they did what they could with what they had at the moment, and obviously there's always going to be mixed reactions, and there's always going to be people not happy with what they're doing, but for what they had, I think it was quite impressive for how scrambled things got.
Yeah, I thought the biggest letdown for me was Taker and AJ. And I know there's reasons why, but for me, everybody that I know, not everybody I know, most people I know were disagreeing with me. And their thing was like, oh, but it was different, and it was cute, and it was quirky, and it was this, and I'm like, it's the fucking dead man. He doesn't need to be cute or quirky or different. He's the fucking dead man. He's the American badass. We don't need him to do a freaking movie. If I want to see him in a movie, I'll watch fucking Jason or Michael Myers, because that's basically the gimmick he does. I thought it was good for what they had, but when I heard him and AJ were going, I was like, oh my God, that's going to be off the hook. Because even though Taker's broken down, he can still go at those matches. And then AJ Styles can make anybody. He made Shane McMahon look like a star, and they had the best match at WrestleMania.
Definitely.
So I just wasn't too. I just thought it was too much. They try to make a movie, and I may am over analytical about stuff, but there was a point when Taker transported out of the grave, and it was behind AJ.
Right.
If you had that ability, why wouldn't you do that before the lock?
The whole time.
You just boom, roll 1, 2, 3, grab 1, 2, 3. The match is over.
Yeah,
You know?
it goes beyond the sort of, because obviously there's some sort of suspension of disbelief in wrestling. There's things like, why aren't you climbing the ladder faster and shit like that.
Why don't you transfer back down?
But I think those specific things where it's like, I have these supernatural powers, but let me use them right at the end.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's hard to keep me invested when you do shit like that.
And I watched briefly a little bit of the thing on Undertaker after, and he said that he didn't want to be that guy that when a father's explaining the Undertaker to his kid, he used to say, well, he used to be really good.
Right.
And that's kind of where I'm at with the Undertaker. Like, I've always been a fan of his. Obviously, whenever that music hits, chills. It just chills.
Yeah, right.
The whole aura of him, it transcends wrestling. The guy can wrestle once a year, and which is a whole other argument. But he wrestles once a year, and it's still the biggest event in wrestling. But I even know deep down inside, he knows that that's not a him versus Austin match.
No, not at all.
So the legacy gets tarnished after a while, but I'm glad to see him still in the business. I didn't like the fact that he retired and came back because that's just a pet peeve of mine. But it was what it was.
Right.
I would have rather seen AJ Styles versus Cesaro because of wrestling.
Yeah, like a wrestling match. Yeah, and like I understand what they were going for with it, and like obviously those type of produced matches became really popular within the past couple of years because of Matt Hardy and like those sort of things. But I definitely think AJ could have brought Taker to just a solid match because I've seen him bring Roman Reigns to a fucking great match. I've seen him bring, like you said, Shane McMahon.
Everybody's been in the ring.
Like the dude can he could wrestle a broomstick. He really is one of those guys. And instead, they decided to sort of go with this overly. I think the biggest issue with it was they couldn't figure out whether they wanted it to be so stupid it was just funny, or be like this big moment for Undertaker, super serious. Yeah, they couldn't
that's what I'm
find
saying.
the
Like
balance.
Undertaker doesn't need that. Well, let's make this just funny.
Right.
It just diminishes his character, dude. Like I used to legitimately be scared of that guy, and then just to think that now he wants to do comedy is kind of like. Whatever.
It's almost like sad to watch.
Yeah,
like, what has become of this guy?
It's like, dude, this is bad.
Right. Right. So we talk about WrestleMania, and then obviously throughout there we mentioned that you're a pro wrestler. You've been wrestling what, 20?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
I don't keep a notebook with the documentation.
You don't have the etchings of the numbers, but what I kind of wanted to ask was, did you always grow up sort of a fan of wrestling, and if so, like, did you have some inspirations that led you to the business, or was it something you kind of came across later in your life?
Honestly, growing up, I didn't know what the hell wrestling was. I had no idea it even existed. The first time I ever watched it, I was in 6th grade, and my father just came back in my life, so I came up to stay with him on a weekend. And he picked me up, and we, went to the house, and then the next day he's like, "We're going to wrestling." I'm like, "What's that?" I didn't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And he kind of explained it to me, and I was like, "Whatever, dude. We lived out in the country. There's nothing out there but freaking cows and pigs, and I want to play with that. I'm a city boy,
Right.
So he took me to this wrestling show, and at the Memorial Auditorium here in Sacramento, and I was amazed at everything. I can remember the whole card. I think I still have the program, the actual card on it. But main event was Hogan and Stud. Snuka wrestled Morocco.
Right.
Rocky Johnson fought Piper, worked Piper.
Which is crazy to think, for those of you who don't know, the Memorial Auditorium seats maybe 4,000 to 5,000.
Yeah, it was territory days back then.
Yeah, to think just like from a new fan's perspective, where the only show I've seen there was a NXT house show. To think like Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper were in this building is kind of
crazy. But see, back then, like even the TV show was tiny.
Right.
They sold arenas. That's where it was, But this was right before the big boom, when WrestleMania and all that. This was right before that, so it wasn't really on a hugely level. Now a lot of people still don't know what wrestling was, but ever since that, T.C. Martin would bring WWE in town because this was the territory days. Right. So he would bring them back once a month, and that was my weekend to come up to see my dad. Mm-hmm. We'd go do that, and we'd go to roller derby, which is at the same place. Right. And it was just great, man. It was a good time, and I went back home, and then my life became pro wrestling. I just loved it, and I couldn't get enough of it. Right. Became a student of it, wanting to read everything I could. Man, there's wrestling in Japan too.
Right.
And there's Hulk Hogan's not the only champion, and I just
Right.
started learning all this stuff about wrestling, and it was hooked. It was definitely
Right.
hooked.
And so that sort of that kind of led you to want to train and actually become a wrestler.
Yeah, I went through. High school. I played football,
Right.
and I was supposed to play somewhere, and I got into a little trouble, and I ended up not going.
Right.
So I went to the military for a short stint. Came home and was really doing nothing. And I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna try to give it a shot. And I had a brochure on my wall, and I remember at the time, my ex-wife told me to either take it down or go train. So I started training, and I went to a school in Hayward named All Pro Wrestling. And I remember at the time I had just started doing that. I had just gotten a job in Nevada at a boys' ranch called Rite of Passage, and I'd have to go up there for a week and come back for a week.
Right.
So it was the same time as my training started. We were training Sundays and Wednesdays.
Right.
At the garage. So I'd have to, and sure as Nevada, where my thing was, and the actual campus was 30 miles in the desert, was 5 hours from Sac, and then San Jose or Hayward's like an hour and a half from here. So I'd have to drive up there, go to work late, then work till Wednesday, drive back, train, and then drive all the way back, and then come all the way back, go to Sunday, and then I can stay home for a couple of days.
Yeah.
But I did that for about 7 or 8 months. And then I remember I had to take some time off because I got an injury. Came back for a train about another 7 or 8 months, and then I slipped a disc in my back. And at the time, the guy who was running it basically was going to recycle me from the beginning, and I was like, dude, I can't do this anymore, man. I can't do this.
Right.
I'm having to work my ass off, driving all over the place, and to start over now. And there's people who are already wrestling who weren't as good as me, I thought at the time,
Right.
but who just paid up front. So
They paid the dues.
yeah, so they paid their money. So they were already doing, and they were doing stuff for shows like, Refn or anything. But I was just like,
But they were involved in past that.
And at the time, Mike Monas, who was one of my trainers, was just putting me over all the time. He's like, man, we got to get you in the ring, and you're pretty, just really talking really up really good. He'd work with me on the side on weekends. I can get up there, and I just got tired of it, and I was like, I guess this isn't going to happen because I can't deal with this. Right. I have a family, like I gotta take care of and worry about, and so I left. And then when I finally got cleared to wrestle, a buddy who I was training with there started wrestling for NAW in Fresno under Brian Ward, and he said, hey, do you want to come train? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I said, but hey, I dropped a bunch of money into the other school. So I told Brian that, and he's like, well, if you want it bad enough, you'll find the money. So I had to come up with $2,000 in a week.
Jesus Christ.
And I came up with $2,000 in a week.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I just trained for because we already had the basics down, the bumping and the basic stuff like that. He kind of pushed us along pretty quick. And then I think 6 months after training with Brian, I had my first match.
Right.
And then it was just off to the races from then on.
Okay. So you sort of talk about a lot of the process of training back then. Obviously, a lot of money involved, but also just like these grueling hours of balancing personal and work life with that. And before I ask this question, this isn't shade on anybody. I don't want this to become some Facebook comment argument. This is more just a general question of the business in general. What do you think about the current state of wrestling and the way? Because I've noticed the student ideal is typically very different. Obviously, me and my brother who are in the business have those older ideals because we were trained by you. But I noticed there are a lot of younger wrestlers who want to be involved a lot faster nowadays. And, there's not really these unpaid road trips to out of state, and things like that. So what's sort of your take on the way that works now?
I think it's really, to put bluntly, it's a bunch of horse shit. That it's too easy to get in this business.
Right.
And people now are being trained by guys who have no business wrestling themselves, let alone training people. When you train people to wrestle, there's dues that have to be paid. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to beat your ass if you don't do a lockup right.
Right.
If we lock up and you keep hurting me, yeah, there's going to be a receipt. But I'm going to work my guys hard. We're going to run ropes. We're going to do up downs. We're going to do wall sits and squats and all the stuff we have to do. And you're going to be puking and you're going to be spitting and all that. I'm not going to be in your ass and, oh, you fucking piece of shit. You better quit. You ain't cut out for this. Your mama's a whore and all that, because that doesn't help you all get through it.
Right.
Getting people through that is a mental block physically. Emotionally, that happens later. But it's just, you have to show me that you're going to be safe in the ring and that there is dues you have to pay. You got to be conditioned. As anybody who knows who's wrestled somebody who can go, you can't take conditioning lightly because your match suffers.
Absolutely.
So you have to be in shape. So my job as a trainer, when I put kids out there, is to teach them not only the wrestling, but the physical part of it, which is conditioning and all that, the mental part of it, which is the business side of it, and how to act like a freaking man.
Right.
How to shut the fuck up and do what you're told. And that's the whole thing that's getting lost now, because a guy will buy a ring, and because he owns the ring, now all of a sudden he's going to run camps.
Right. He got a warehouse somewhere.
Or you'll have a guy who trained with somebody for a while, and now he thinks that he can train people. And it's not the same thing. Like, I've been to a doctor fucking almost every month for 4 years.
Right.
It doesn't mean I can examine somebody and tell them what's wrong with them. You know, there's a special thing that goes into training people. And if you've been usually in the military, or if you've been a personal trainer or something, you kind of get those things.
Right.
By the numbers, the way and it takes a special person to train people how to do something properly. That's why anybody just can't do it.
Right.
You know, like I said, you can take a guy like let's see, Randy Moss, who was always blessed with speed and size and all this stuff like that.
Right.
And he can probably show somebody how to catch the ball better. But you can take a guy who was unathletic, who had to learn how to catch the ball.
Yeah.
And he'll probably be a better trainer.
Because he knows fundamentally.
Most of the coaches in the NFL or even at college were not the best football players.
Right.
They had to work hard to just get playing time.
They had to learn the actual science behind it.
Yeah, they had to pay those dues to just get a sample of it, you know. So those are the guys generally who are better. Like myself, I tell people, like, I had to work harder than most people just to be average. You know, I'm not. I'm known as a great trainer and all that stuff, but you know, like, I had to work really hard my whole life in general just to get good at what I do. You know? And I've trained a lot of fucking people, and you know, some are really, really good, and some aren't in the business anymore. Right. You know, but they all have the same skill. Well, they know how to respect the business. They act appropriately. Right. You know, and they leave the business on a good note, on a good term. Right. You know.
Well, and I think one of the things, and obviously you're my dad, so people are gonna think this is biased, but anytime I fucking move, it's because I'm Big Ugly's kid. Oh, but, yeah. You know, yeah. I think one of the reasons that you are so highly regarded, not only as a wrestler, but as a trainer specifically, and the reason that sort of trickled down into some of your students who are training now, is the fact that you genuinely care about the product. And I think there are a lot of guys, and again, if you think this is about you, maybe you need to reflect into how you run yourself. If you're thinking this is, because this is just a general idea, but there are a lot of people who get into training or get into wrestling in general for themselves, you know, and you are someone who, you told me on a number of times that if you didn't have to wrestle at your own company, you fucking wouldn't, you know, you realize that your name still has some, you know, some legitimacy to the guy, and then, you know, eventually one day you'll sort of go into the background and have these stars that you're pushing be the forefront. And I think that's something that is missing from the business nowadays. You know, like I said, obviously me and my brother were kind of brought up with different ideals, but it just shocks me how many times we go to shows and people think we're like these spoiled pieces of shit before they meet us, and then afterwards they're like, wow, you guys are really respectful. And I'm like, yeah. Like, what the fuck?
That's one of the biggest misconceptions that, like, well, you know, I take it two ways. So people would tell me, "Oh, you're only good because you're dad." I'm like, "Well, damn fucking right."
Right.
We spent a lot of time training.
I would imagine.
Don't neglect the fact that they spent the time, and I took the time because they're my students and my kids. Yeah, that's why they're good, because I trained them. Yeah. Right. Not because they're getting pushes, because shit, you guys are at companies I'm not even at. Yeah. You know, you guys are doing things I'm not doing. Right. You know, so it's not just because fucking who I am. You know, it's just you guys are good people.
Because you got Vince on speed dial.
And, you know, one thing that here in North California, and even every territory or every area has it, is that whenever I say something, people want to assume that I'm talking about somebody from that circle. Right. So one of the things I'll say now was like, and this guy I love to death. He's one of my students and one of my best friends in the world, is Sir Samurai. And if I say something, people are like, "Oh, you're talking about Samurai?" No, I'm not talking about fucking Samurai. Well, I don't care what your thing is with him. Yeah. I'm talking about somebody in fucking Oregon, or somebody that I used to wrestle with in Texas, or somebody in fucking Washington. I have a broad places of where I work, so when I say stuff, it's not always directed at one guy that I know that you know. Right. I don't just work in the little tri-area here. Yeah. I wrestle all over.
There's plenty of people you could be talking about.
And I know, like, I've been doing this 20 plus years, so I know a lot of people. I've done a lot of things, and so a lot of the stuff I have is just a general thing, but people always want to target it on, "Oh, he's talking, Ugly said this about you." Right. If I'm meaning you, I'll say you.
I'll fucking tell you, yeah.
And generally, if I don't like you, I'm not going to put your name in my mouth, because you don't deserve that weight.
Right.
Not to have an ego, but I'm like, if I mention you mean something.
Well, yeah, if you don't think someone's worth the time, why make a post?
Why put your name out there?
And I think sometimes there's so many times I've seen too that kills me. This happened kind of recently. Was you'll make a general statement about things that go on in the business, and it either like you said, gets targeted towards someone, or somehow your legitimacy and credibility gets questioned. Like a recent thing happened that you had brought up on Facebook that we won't delve into, but you had talked about you used a situation that happened recently to talk about a larger aspect of the business, which is how female performers are treated, which is true. A lot of the times female performers are treated not well, and that's in any business. That's not just wrestling. But all of the sudden now the comments are, well, who are you to? And my I think the funniest thing that I take away from it was, as if you have to have some kind of wrestling credibility to call out shitty behavior.
Yeah, call out why a woman's being taken advantage of.
Like, hey, women get taken advantage of. Well, what have you done to prove that? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really like, who are you? You're the guy that followed me on Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
As if I'm going to be like, well, I won a belt over here. And they're like, okay, yeah, well, women do get treated bad then. Yeah, it's just so weird.
Now you agree with me because of people I've trained?
Yeah.
I asked what I said. Well, if you don't know who I am, then don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to explain everything I've done and the people I know.
Right, because it's irrelevant.
And then he proceeded to tell me all the people who he respects. I'm like, yeah, I know. I train them.
Yeah.
Like that. And he's like, oh, well, I'm just saying that, But why should we listen to you? You don't got to listen to shit.
Yeah.
Take me off your Twitter. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But it's not even like you questioned a wrestler or an aspect of the business.
You figure people would be behind that.
Yeah, you figure I don't need to prove my wrestling credibility to say that women shouldn't be treated poorly.
Yeah, to say that when you're not wrestling, you're grabbing a woman's tits in a lockup, that's wrong.
It's sort of a weird... But that is sort of, especially from smaller... Because I notice especially... Like, this happens in a lot of performance art, but especially in wrestling... often the ones who talk the loudest are the ones with the least amount behind it.
Oh yeah.
Prime example is you and a lot of the people you train. Like a prime example is a lot of people didn't know you trained Johnny. Why? Yeah. Because you're not always fucking talking about it. But then you have people who want to talk about how they've been to Japan and they've done all these things, which was in reality a seminar they did somewhere. Yeah. And then you look at their Twitters or Facebooks, and their profile pictures them in a low boy in front of 9 people. Yeah. So it is always funny that half of those things come from those kind of people, and then every other comment are these like well-regarded wrestlers being like, yeah, that's not.
Well, there was just recently there was one of my buddies was posting his top 5 or top whatever, and to me those lists are always comical because people don't get them. I think what he was saying was the top in his company.
Right.
And people are making arguments for different things. So I post who's the top vets in Northern California or something like that. Right. And I purposely left some people off, and I purposely put some people on.
Right.
And the feedback I got on, I deleted some shit, but there was one guy who somebody posted, why isn't he on there? And then he proceeded to answer 6 times on how he didn't care about not being on the list. And I knew he would. That's why I left him off, because he's one of the guys I respect the most in the business. Right. But I would just sit there thinking, like, this is my point. Like, you can't have a best of something because nobody's going to agree.
Yeah.
Like, how do you say he's the best at this when there's... And then what I basically told him was, I'm like, listen, you guys are all arguing about this, but look at the guys who are legit.
Yeah.
Fucking Vinny Massaro, fucking Kratos, and guys like that. They're not answering shit on here because it doesn't fucking matter.
Well, and those are the guys that are so frequently left off those lists because they don't care.
Because they're bigger than Northern California.
Like, yeah.
They're like it's because it's all a bunch of bullshit. Anyways, it's who's popular, whoever gets people to agree to vote for them the most.
Right.
And anytime you get a fan that are a wrestler. Messages them privately and says, "Hey, would you please vote for me?"
Right.
They're gonna vote for me. I used to have wrestlers that on the show when we did the fan appreciation show, I would put them up for awards because I know they would bring people in.
Right.
They would ask a bunch of their family to come
so they could get the votes.
So they can get the votes to win, and then I'd make more money off of it.
Right.
So I was like, oh, cool, bring them all in, bro. You're up for Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah.
And they bring in 25 people.
Right.
And then I'm making all that money. And I'm like, hey, cool, bring one more next year. And I would always angle it out anyways, Give it out anyways,
right.
But
it's just sort of comical.
It's just like this business. The sometimes the ego and the what about me and I'm more important and I'm somebody is just sad.
Right.
You know, and that's why, like, whenever people put that stuff up, I don't care if I'm on it. The people who I respect and who know that the fact that when I walk in a building, people run over to shake my hand,
right,
is all that matters to me.
When it's not being on some list isn't going to affect you running a school someday again and owning a company like you do now. You know, if you're not on somebody's top favorite wrestlers on a Twitter post, that doesn't negate the fact that you have fans coming to see your shows, because that's what you fucking care about is the product that you're churning out. And sort of along that same line, I wanted to talk about your coaching background in football, but something to kind of segue into that was through wrestling, you were able to fundraise a lot of money for your program and the school you work and coach at through an event that we did last year called the River City Rumble. And before we kind of delve into the coaching aspect, I wanted to delve into that sort of process of building such a large show after not running a company for such a long time, and sort of get your mindset leading up to that.
Well, you know, we had done a show there years ago, and it wasn't. My job was to hire the talent.
Right.
So I hired all my guys from SPW, and we helped the school out. It was that the head coach at that time had put it on. I didn't think it was done the right way.
You're right.
And so when I took over as the head coach, because I've been there over 30 years coaching, but when I took over the head coaching job, I had went to a boosters meeting where they were telling everybody what they're making. Boosters are giving each program: soccer, basketball, baseball, everything. And I was appalled at how little each program gets.
Right.
Whereas football, we get paid the highest. We get $1,200.
Right.
That suits up a kid and a half for me.
Yeah.
The wrestling program got $40.
Jesus Christ.
And there's certain guidelines they have, which, okay, I get it, but then I would just think we have to find a way for these guys to make money.
Right.
And selling fucking cookie dough is not going to get
cookie
done.
dough and all that's bullshit.
Everybody knows that cookie dough is a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's a waste of a day. Sure. It's a waste of just the kids doing shit.
That guy's a con artist.
Yeah. And then like you're gonna have your wrestlers that are trying to lose weight sell cookie dough. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's weird.
So anyway, I just decided, hey, you know, what could I do to give back? You know, and do something that is not going to cost us anything, and that I think would be entertaining.
Right.
So the one, you know, pulse I have on things is wrestling.
Right.
It's pro wrestling. You know, I have a pretty good network of friends and people who can do stuff, and I started putting. There's always my general people who I know if I call, they're definitely going to do it.
Right.
Honor Society, Flaco Loco. I knew Shane would help out.
Right.
I mean, there's a bunch of people. I can't name everybody.
You have that sort of core
Yeah, I know
group of
Vinny
people.
would always help, and JR would, of course, be there. And all these guys I know would definitely help if they weren't working, if they weren't in Japan or something, you know.
Right.
Would definitely love to be and help out and donate
Right.
their time and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, you know, we'll do it. And I started putting the feelers out there. And then I said, well, you know, if I want to help everybody, if I'm truly gonna be unselfish and truly want to help people out and just fix the problem. I think Paul Heyman said it best. He said that, I don't want to ruin what he said, but he said that, are you the kind of person that just sits there, bitches, whines, and complains, and when you can solve a problem, you just sit, bitch, whine, and complain?
Right.
I don't want to be that person. So I said, what could I do? So I came up with the idea that I'm just going to have every team sell their own tickets.
Right.
So if I give the swim team, you know, 20 tickets and you sell all 20, that's $200 for you.
And you didn't take a cut at all.
I didn't take a cut of anything. That was 100% profits go to that school.
Right.
All I asked is that they maybe donate some cookies or something so I can feed my wrestlers. You know.
Right.
Maybe they can donate an hour or two to help break down, set up, do security or something. Just it cost them nothing but saying, "Hey, go sell 2 tickets."
Yeah.
And so there was not everybody took advantage of that, but some teams did. The wrestling program made like $1,000.
Yeah.
You know, and a couple of the, I think, senior scholars, all those kids got their SATs paid for. You know, and
it wasn't just sports too.
Yeah,
it was all clubs and everything.
Sports, the bands, cheerleading, like I said, senior scholars. God, I can't think of.
It was like all clubs, all sports.
There was a robotics club sold a couple, golf sold a couple.
Right.
But it was just, I don't think people understood. I think there was, because the way society has you is, well, how's this guy getting his money, making his money?
Right.
And I was like, I made almost $8,000. Why? Because I did a silent auction, and then I sold, our players sold tickets, and I got the door. Like,
yeah.
So I made my own money. But I wanted there one to be a big crowd for my guys to perform in front of, and 2, everybody in my community to enjoy this.
Yeah,
you know?
and I think it does suck that our society is that way because all the fundraisers throughout the years we've learned are quite honestly cons and bullshit. You know, when you have these kids spend hours calling family members and selling all these things, and they're so excited about all these prizes they can get, and at the end of the day, you hear the faithful well, technically you haven't sold anything yet.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, hey, what the fuck, you know? So I think people are a little like, well, who's this guy who's suddenly interested in our...
Why does he want to help us out?
Yeah.
How's football going to
And
make
it's like, I don't know, because I fucking work here.
Yeah,
And
because this is my community. I went to school here.
Right.
And I see a problem. I want to help make it better.
And again, too, like beyond that, okay, if you want to find some reason that it benefits us, that's more butts in the seats that are sitting there watching us perform and do what we do. We had, almost 900 in there? Yeah. So, and
then I did donate some tickets to the place that we both work, Creative Living Options.
Yeah.
Donated some to them, and a couple other places I donated a couple tickets to, a couple group homes and places like that. Who, anybody who works in in-home supportive services knows that they don't get most money, a lot of money.
Yeah.
So if they can go to something like that for free.
It's like, hell yeah.
I'm all for it.
Definitely.
And then plus they're so loud and they appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Something so different, exciting.
It's just, for me, it's giving back to a third aspect of my life, which is supporting people with disabilities.
Right.
Which I'm with the big three: football, wrestling, and people with disabilities. I've done those for almost the same amount of time.
Your entire life, yeah.
So trying to give back to all that. But when I first booked this show and I started telling people, because of my history as a promoter and a booker, and then because of the stuff I've done, the people I know, people start hearing it and were asking to work to wrestle for me. And I was like, I can't. I don't have no room. I can't pay anybody. We'll do it for free. And I started getting all these people wanting to work for free because they really got behind
the idea,
the fundraising aspect of, And I had one guy who's a pretty big name in this business who had told me, well, I'll do it for X amount of dollars. And I didn't really want to pay. And I said, you know what? But I want you on the show. I have a perfect match for you. I'll give it to you. And he's like, hey, well, let me sell tickets for you. Give me some tickets to sell them. So I gave him some tickets. It was 30. He sold all 30 tickets. And he brought it over, and I'm like, hey, well, just take this repay. He's like, just keep it all, because I don't want nothing.
Jesus.
So he did all that. Basically made me $400.
And then refused to take anything.
Didn't want money. Well, I mean, the 100 I didn't pay him, and then the 300 for the 30 tickets he sold.
Right.
And his match was, great. He had a great match. So I was just like, he just added so much. But, I love my wrestlers, but they made a lot off merchandise too. They're smart.
Oh, yeah,
but
no, they know the business.
But a lot of these guys I was just amazed at how. And then I had some guys who I was like, I wouldn't want you on my show. I appreciate you wanting to do it for free, but I don't want you on my show anyways. But then some people were getting mad and that I didn't book them. But I was like, listen, man, I have a certain roster that I use,
right?
And it just happens to be some of the best guys in Northern California. If I don't use you, whether you think you're a legend or not. It's because I really don't have a spot for you. Not that I don't appreciate you. I have an idea for what I want for my show. Everything's got to build up like a movie to the end, and throwing you in there just doesn't.
Well, and there is a lot of like, can I be on the show? I want to help out. Okay, well, all I have right now is the Battle Royal. Well, I'll see.
I don't want to do it. I'll think about it.
Maybe.
I don't think about it. I'll give you the answer right now.
Well, it's like, clearly you don't fucking care about the message. You just want to put yourself over on the show. But I think that is one of the things, because obviously, like I said, I'm a wrestler as well, and I was on the show that night. I wrestled Mike Hayashi. It was a really good match, I think, especially for the spot we were. It was really cool. But, man, that show, and you can go watch it now on the Ugly Dojo YouTube channel. We did a live stream of the show. But, man, just the way the entire thing went, like watching you prepare it for months, go out and get sponsors. We had, like, local sponsors from places that near where we live, and then the day of, just, like, watching it all come together. And then the way, I think my favorite part of it, and this is why I think people have so much faith in not only the promoter aspect of you, but just your product in general, is the way the show went throughout the night all culminated in that last match. And I think legitimately, like, no bias or anything, one of my favorite wrestling moments of all time was coming out to the band playing the old football song, and then all four of us walking out. It was just like, holy, this is how a show is fucking ran.
And even though, like, I had planned on that, I didn't want to tell a lot of people about the band, and I didn't tell Kratos, but even the decision on how we were coming out wasn't until the last minute.
Where it was just us, me and Titus.
And then me, and then Bishop.
Yeah.
But even I was going to come out first because I'm a traditional wrestler. I'm like, he's the champ. He's got to come out last. And at the last minute, Flock was like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Boss, it doesn't make sense.
It didn't.
I know you're trying to be selfless and blah, blah, but you have to. And I was just thinking, I'm always the kind of guy where I don't give a shit. I'm going to do whatever I want. You can't tell me no, but, through my elderly years here. I've been trying to listen to more people.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fuck it. I don't care
Yeah.
if people think I'm a mark. I'm gonna do it. But God, it couldn't have worked out better.
No, and that is you just trying to be selfless and be like, well, he's a champion. But at the same time, yeah, if you had come out first and did all that, and then he came out, it honestly would have kind of fucked him over.
Yeah. And what people don't appreciate, because not a lot of people were aware, my calves cramped up. We're sitting there walking around. I'm like, because we were running around. I mean, even though the night before I was running around getting barbed wire, I was running around getting. No, that was the other show. But I was just running around getting stuff for the show and all this stuff.
Well, on that day, like there was not a moment you were sitting.
And I wasn't drinking a lot of water.
Yeah, of course.
I was running around doing this. I remember. It was about intermission. I go, man, I better get some Gatorade or something. So I get some Gatorade. I'll be cool. And I would get up and I hop on that apron. I'm like, oh shit! And they both just cramp up. Not one of them.
Yeah.
They both just.
I remember hopping on the ring apron, and there's a shot of us that's actually really cool. Like
our backs.
Yeah. But I remember hearing you say, hold on, don't get in yet. And I'm thinking, oh, he wants the moment, for fans to take pictures. Come to find out later that he just couldn't get in the fucking ring.
And it's funny because when I tell people that, they start watching, they go, oh my God, look at the way you're walking.
Yeah.
And I remember I get in the corner, I'm talking to you guys, I go, dude, my calves are done. I can't stretch them out if I go.
Yeah.
So I tell Sparky, I'm like, hey, tell JR to sell because my calves are cramping.
Right.
Up. And I don't think he understood it. I got to JR, I got in his face. And then I said, powder out. He's like, and he looks at us, my calves are cramping. And he powdered out, and I was thinking, man, I can't do nothing. Because if I move my toes a certain way, they're both going to lock up, and I'm done. So we end up working a little bit, and then I do my Rana. If you watch my Rana, my legs are straight.
Your legs are completely in the air, yeah. Well, there's a lot of moments, even where, like, he whips you off, and you're just, like a Lego man. Just
like first day at wrestling school, my right leg, my right hand, my right left leg, my right.
Fucking, it's so... And it's like one of those things, though, where that match is so interesting, and every once in a while... There's a lot of your matches I go back and watch every once in a while, just to, because I think they're so technically sound. You versus Sean Davari is one that every couple of months I go back and rewatch because I think it's just so. Obviously I'm a big storyteller. I'm not in there doing 450 splashes. Yeah. I'm sort of a kick punch kind of girl, but going back and watching those from a storyline aspect, I think are why I enjoy them so much. And that match is one where that match. With you and Davari, the Rumble match, and you and Marcus for the SPW belt, I think are three of my favorite matches to go back and watch because it's one of those things where you guys really didn't do an insane amount in any of those matches. The River City Rumble, obviously, you guys pulled out some more shit, but that's just because JR could pick up a fucking bus.
Yeah, so you can tell JR not to do much, but JR gets in the ring and you have no choice but to go.
Right. But I think watching those, that's a perfect example of why I think wrestling is about moments because, with you and Davari, it's you getting the German and just fucking roaring up and giving him the thing and then all the kids in the ring at the end. With you and Marcus, it's, Karina kicking your hand and him rolling you up and then obviously the big
promo at the end.
Psych out retirement promo at the end. And with that one, there's, 90 moments. There's, there's obviously a couple of moves that were huge deals. You guys, kicking out at two of each other's big moves. Bishop pantsing Mike Miller.
Which has like 40,000, 100 views on
fucking Christ, there's so many views on TikTok.
But the funniest thing about that is when, whenever I do something that's wrestling involved, I've always believed in having commentary.
Yeah.
It just adds so much. And I remember going up to that was one of the things where it wasn't working, and I was just like, let's cut bait. Fuck it. We can't do it. It's not going to happen because you were in charge of that.
I did it.
And I was like, and so I walk away, and I'm just like, fuck, whatever. I can't worry about that right now. We're being ready to start.
Right.
And then you ended up being able to get it done.
Finally.
But whenever I do that, I get my commentary guys together, which is Flacco and Shane.
Yeah. Which, by the way, two of the greatest commentators in the area, let alone,
And I remember when I not to break kayfabe on wrestling, but when I sent them the booking sheet, Shane's biggest concern was, besides he didn't get enough camera time, was, I love that dude, and he was one of the guys I respect the most in the business. Right. So I always listen to him, his side of everything, even though it's so good with Shane because we don't agree on a lot of shit, but the stuff we agree on is spot on. It's like we agree on the important shit, but some of the little bells and whistles we don't agree on. But
right.
Anyways, he told me, he's like, man, so how are you going to have that finish the babyface jobs? And at your show, the fans got to go away happy. I said, don't worry, they will.
I got it. Yeah.
I got it. And he's like, what? And so then I explained to him, he was like, that'll work. And then we made it work. JR was a babyface for 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever it was. But it just, worked. And like I agree that you shouldn't have a show like that of that magnitude. where the head coach is on in the main event,
right,
and leave on a bad note unless you're coming back. We weren't coming back till next year,
right,
and you're not going to keep these people interested for a year. They're going to forget.
Yeah, they're going to be.
So I wanted to end it with showing him respect because he was the Portland
the Pacific Northwest champion.
And to keep it on him and just do something people wouldn't expect. No, everybody expected me to win.
Right.
It's my school. You
Right.
know. So we did a little swerve there, and it ended up on a real good note. Even though that a lot of that stuff got blotched in that I had in my mind was going to happen, nobody noticed but me.
Yeah.
And it was good. It was good. It was just a great time. And my biggest thing is I brought a lot of guys together who never worked each other.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people from my community who were never exposed to wrestling in general, let alone me wrestling.
Yeah.
And then you guys wrestling.
Yeah.
It was a great night all around, man. It was just one of those moments in my life where, in the retrospect of it all, that would have been a perfect way to go out.
Yeah.
That night right there. But I can still go. So,
right.
But it was just one of those nights where just like I cut a promo and didn't cuss.
Yeah, which is rare.
Yeah. But it was just a good night, man. And the community came together. The wrestlers came together.
Right.
And it was just fun, man. It was just
right.
fun as hell. And what people really don't realize is after they left and went home and screwed around, we stayed and cleaned up.
Oh yeah, it's about 1 a.m. probably.
And then we got up and did it again at SPW the next day.
Hell yeah.
But no, that was a great moment. And
yeah,
like I was
definitely.
talking about Kratos because he's like one of my favorite guys ever. There was some moments where I'm like, let me sell, and he just picks me up. And
yeah.
I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go over here.
All right, I guess I'm going.
That guy is freakishly strong.
Yeah.
But God, he's the nicest guy in the world, and one of my favorite, probably 3 guys to work.
Definitely. And hopefully, we're trying to make it an annual thing for the school, and obviously we're all under quarantine.
Coronavirus.
Yeah, the corona's definitely keeping things ambiguous, but hopefully by some stretch of the imagination we could get this year's show on May 16th back on. But as of right now, we're unsure of that. But so we talk about that, and I kind of want to get away from wrestling, obviously, because it's been only that. But like we said, you did that show to raise money for the school, all sports and all clubs. But a reason I think you have a vested interest in that, obviously, is you are the head coach of the River City football program. So I kind of wanted to start off by saying, what led you to like wanting to coach football, and how'd you sort of get into it first?
When I first wanted to coach, I had coached. I think I was like 19. I had coached. This when I got in some trouble with Humboldt. I had coached a year of youth football, Westside Bears.
Right.
And
that's right. We were the Bears back then.
Yeah, we were the Bears back
Jeez.
then. And I liked it. I just coached because my friends were coaching, and I was
sort of just a thing to do.
Yeah, just a thing. And I was I was 20 because I just came back from the military.
Right.
And I just was going to be out there and be a drill sergeant and just ride these kids and be an asshole. And
right.
Different time, though.
Right.
So I did it. I liked it. And then the next year, the high school was doing a freshman program. And the guy who got the job was Coach Chris Baker, who was one of my coaches. And he asked me, hey, you want to give coaching up here a shot? I was like, sure.
Why not?
Yeah. I get some money out of it. Yeah. So I did it, and I coached, and I loved it. I coached the freshman program. I coached with him, Tyrone Johnson, and a guy named Willie Brown. And we, I said Coach Baker pretty much did everything. I was just learning how to coach.
Right.
And I just
that's just sort of how Coach B is.
Yeah, and I was just like kind of, he was mentoring me.
Right.
And then he told me, hey, if you ever want to be the head coach, you got to go back to college. You need to be credentialed. So I went to college at AR for a semester, and I ended up getting a young lady pregnant, and so I had to get a real job.
Right.
And then at that same time, when I got my real job, because at the time I was just working at a gym, I started my training to wrestle.
Right.
But
so it was all happening right at once.
All me, I got to do everything at once.
That's true, yeah.
But so I started doing all that. But I dropped out of school, and I was like, well, man, I'm making great money here, and this, and I'm gonna be a big WWE superstar. So why do I have to get in? Why do I got to go to school? This coaching gonna be a thing in the past. And so, anyways, I just ended up coaching and doing that, and traveling around doing job to job. And then I always loved coaching. There was one year that I had to take off because of personal reasons.
Right.
And then Coach Watkins, who had taken over as a head coach of varsity, he welcomed me back. And from then I went from coaching JV and freshman to varsity.
Right.
And just did it from then on. And it was just like one of the biggest parts of my life was coaching football. Like all the kids that I've met and coached, and it's just been I love it. I love it to death. You know, and it's been my. I won't say my focus. Like I get focused on so many things. People say like I'm like the girl in a gangbang video. I got a bunch of balls in the air. But that's just the way I am. That's why this coronavirus thing is killing me.
Because now you're just stuck at home.
I got nothing. I'm taking up freaking geocaching for God's sake.
Yeah, when I first heard that you were doing a TikTok trend, I was quite surprised.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, what the fuck is? God damn this.
You're like the Undertaker.
Oh shit!
What the fuck has happened?
No, the coaching is just I've learned probably more coaching than I did in college, just about people and how you interact with people, and coaching with a guy like Coach Baker. Because I've always been that asshole kick-ass guy where I'm just I'm the fucking bad cop all the time. That's how I was for a lot of years.
Yeah. And
just coaching with him, one of the things I've learned is that the less you're bad cop, when you are bad cop, it means more.
Right.
And that's helped me to become even a better trainer in wrestling.
Right.
And just just how to learn how to read people. Not everybody. Like when you're in the military, they don't teach you certain ways. You're all taught the same way, which is through punishment.
Right.
You'll do it right. In normal life, it's not like that. Some people are kinesthetic learners, audio learners, visual learners. Right. So you have to know the way each people learn, and just because it's wrestling or football doesn't mean it's any different.
Right.
So I've learned that differently, and it's allowed me to progress and get better as a person in everything I do, just by taking that. Some people got to be talked to differently.
Right.
Hold them to the same standard. But you just got to handle different.
It's just a different way of communication.
Especially working with all these little gangbanger thugs over here.
Yeah.
I work with.
Well, and I noticed that is obviously me and my brother grew up playing football and youth in high school, and that was a huge problem. Was a lot of our kids did have problems with authority. I know I do. I was like, because you get these guys coming in. And they want to give you their list of what they did at this. I won a state championship at this. And I'm like, hey, I couldn't give less of a shit about that, dude. What are you doing for me here? And you just get these guys borderline threatening these kids like, oh, you better straighten up or else. Or fucking else what? Because Fernando's over there is going to fucking shank you in a minute.
He has a hammer in his backpack right now.
He just beat up 9 kids. So I'm not scared of this 4'2" white guy telling me to straighten up.
Yeah.
These kids are fucking killers. We were out there breaking knees and shit.
Yeah.
So it is weird when you get. I think that's one of the things that I liked about you so much as a coach was because. I don't know if I've talked about this in my podcast before, but when I played football, goddamn, did we not win football games. Yeah. Pretty much my entire football career, I think I played for 9 years, and I won maybe 7 games the entire time. Like, not per year, out of all of those years.
Yeah. No, I was good coach a lot of those years.
Yeah. But most of those years, especially... Like, I didn't like the culture of football, I think, just because it was so, like, cutthroat. Like, this is our life. Raw, It's sort of I did talk about this on my last episode, the sort of 40 minutes for the next 40 years of your life aspect. That I didn't like, but I will say being out there on Friday night was a lot of fun just because you're in it, you're competing, and you're doing what you've been working so hard and grueling through all that shit for. But I think one of the things that was my favorite about you as a coach, especially JV year, where we legit won maybe 1 game out of the 2 years, I think.
1-9 both years.
Yeah. Was that the rapport we had with you was never fear, right? And I think that's what most coaches try to do is they coach out of making the kids fear them as if we're scared of some middle-aged fucking white dude, like... With you, it was the rapport was respect, where it was like, okay, if Coach Ugly's yelling at us, it's because we're really fucking doing something wrong, Like if we're getting yelled at on the bus, it's because we know we shouldn't be talking on the fucking bus, But it was out of respect. You were never just like, you're a fucking useless piece of shit, You just held us to the standard of like, you guys need to act, with some fucking respect.
Yeah.
And when we weren't doing that, when you would communicate that, and then. If it got too out of hand, then it was like, fucking, you guys better straighten up or we're going to be doing craps on Monday.
One of the biggest things with this kids nowadays, especially in West Sac, is that people don't realize is, you have your small percentage of kids that all they want to do is football.
Right.
And it shows in the classroom because they focus on school because they know they want to go to college. I got this kid right now named Amari who just got a full ride to Dixie State.
Yeah.
And a couple other kids, Jordans and fucking Dade, whatever his name is, or fucking Deems, and all these kids that they love football and that's what they want to do.
Right.
Even though if it's a JC or what. So they do good in the classroom. Most of our kids don't care if they play or not.
Yeah.
So by you yelling, I'm saying you will fucking quit and get out of there. All
Okay.
right, deuces, I'm
I'll go
out.
try another
I
one.
can go to the bike trail and smoke weed now. Yeah. You know? So it's not, you don't have that genuine culture of it's about football or nothing.
Right.
So you got to make it about family, about other things that drive them to want to play together.
Yeah.
One of our biggest problems is just the culture in general of kids. When you hold them accountable, they complain.
Yeah.
And then they go tell their parents a different story, and then their parents back them up. You know, you're hating on my kid. I'm not hitting on your kid.
Mm-hmm.
He got in trouble in class. He told the teacher to fuck off.
Yeah.
He got caught bullying a girl. Whatever he did, that's why he's not playing right now.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. He did.
Definitely.
You know, and so it's just, you know, kids, you know, their parents back them up sometimes in those things, and it makes it really hard when you have to keep a kid on the team because
their parents are
whatever.
playing the school.
You know, I'm not gonna like say cast stones, but you know, and then you have other kids who are working their ass off
right
to do everything right.
How do you
And
treat them
how
with the same level of respect?
Why are they saying, why do I have to be good?
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to, I got colleges here today looking at me.
Yeah.
This guy ain't nobody. You know, why do I have to be good? You know?
Yeah. It's sort of unfair.
So yeah, that's the hardest part with coaching is it's not about X's and O's, but head coaching anyways.
Right.
And that's why I try to hire good people around me because I got to deal with so much bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's why certain people don't get the head coaching job because they're not people persons.
Right.
You know, they can't take that. I don't want to say abuse, but they don't like confrontation.
The amount of scrutiny you experience.
and they can't interact well. Like one of my coaches, Beltran, I love to death, and he probably knows more about football than I do, but he'll tell a parent to fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to be like that. Don't get me wrong. When Baker was in charge, I don't give a shit. You got to answer for that, not me.
But now you're.
But now I'm in charge. But she wouldn't be that way. So we'd go halfway through the season, he'd be getting fired.
Yeah.
You know. But me, like, this is my community.
Yeah.
I do everything for this community here in West Sac, and I love our football program. And you know, like I said, the first year I took over, we had a dream season.
Yeah.
You know, we lost our best player, who was Titus.
Yeah.
To an injury it was fucked up.
Very severe.
Yeah, but we made the playoffs against the best team in the state, but
they sort of, you guys, I think the most important takeaway from that was they had enough rapport with you and the team to rally behind that.
That's the group that I coached since they were like 9 years old.
Yeah.
Every year we came up together, and I coached I coached high school and youth, and they were the ones that so it was like they knew what the expectation was. And yada. The next year, when I got Austin Maynard as my white son, he was a senior. Shit, I think we had 5 seniors on that class.
Yeah.
And that whole group, the juniors, I had never coached before. They were all newer freshmen, and after I had left youth, so I didn't know those kids.
Right.
So they didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't have that rapport yet. You know, and like I said, lack of senior it killed us.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, the biggest thing is that, you know, when the year we made the playoffs, they said that we were ranked because we were ranked. I mean, we had more wins than half the teams in the playoffs, but we got ranked last.
Right.
And they said because our preseason was weak, so I upped our preseason. But I upped it too much, and we ended up playing Nevada Union. And
you were playing like ranked teams,
that we just couldn't handle, and so we got our ass kicked.
Right,
we ended up being like 2-8 or something.
Right.
But this year, you know, we band together and we had a great season. We led the league in rushing and sacks and tackles for losses.
Right.
And obviously, you know, having 27 kids, when you go and play Ponderosa, they have 50, or Monterey Trail has like, you know, they go like 35 kids. Yeah. But they all run 4 3s, and
they're all very talented.
All benching 600 pounds, and you know, it's just a different environment, you know. We'll get it back. We had a good group right now before this whole coronavirus hit. That was just banging it out in the weight room every day, hitting it hard, and a good core of kids. The junior class is pretty solid. The senior class we got coming up is good. It's really good. It's just how we're going to get them together to train. You know?
Yeah, no, and it does suck that upon it being a talent level and a coaching staff level of being able to train these kids, like sometimes it is just a numbers game. Like
it is.
My JV year, we had an average amount of kids, but we weren't like super deep. Like I remember essentially banding. I was offensive lineman, and I remember essentially we had to band together with those 5 people and all just be like, hey, we're not allowed to get injured because if one of us goes down, that's I remember there was a game where I was throwing up before the game. I was just fucking puking my life out, and I was still trying to get suited up. And I remember going on the field, and I was just dragging because every step I took, I was like, I'm gonna fucking vom, you know. And you were eventually just like, just take your pads off, get some Gatorade in you, and see what you can do in the second half. So I did. I'm out there taking a knee, drinking Gatorade, and the first play, my replacement, who I won't name, but there was this kid who was the backup right guard, just gets fucking, I mean, it was an assault. Like, it was a murder. Like, I watched a guy get killed that day, and our quarterback gets sacked, and I just slowly put my pads back on and was like, well, I guess I'm Michael Jordan this fucking game, because, yeah, it really was, like, beyond our first team. We just weren't deep, man. And then we were going to places like Consumous Oaks, where their senior night was an hour and a half of names because they had 40 to 50 seniors who were, again, all running like 4.3, 4.4s. They were all like 6'2".
Well, we have one of the things is we're a big baseball community here. Yeah. So our kids play AAU year round, and then
soccer too. Soccer's a big one over here.
Soccer's huge. So we'll get a kicker every year. That's pretty good. But we have kids who play basketball who think they're going to go to the NBA. Right. And I tell them, not that you don't have the ability or whatever, but generally when you focus on one sport, you better be freaking amazing at it. Yeah. Otherwise, colleges, if you're just okay or good, it limits on what you can do. Now, if you go play two sports and you're good at both, it opens up a whole world.
There's now more chances.
Yeah, they see you're more well-rounded, see that you're not so focused on one thing.
Well, look at how many kids that I played football with went to college for rugby. Yeah. And fucking James Cowman was like getting offers from the sevens team to like go train with them, and he played rugby for 6 months. Yeah. But things that unfortunately he was never going to go to college for football or wrestling because he was another 5'9" white kid with some average strength. But then he goes out there rugby and he's tearing it up. Yeah.
And we were doing our spring practice, and we were playing. We had about 25, 26 kids out there. And the basketball team comes out there running their warm-ups, or we're not really running, but they're just running around the track and stuff. I'm looking going, okay, we couldn't use that 6'4" guy that's running a 4 right now. We couldn't use, I was just like thinking, are you kidding me? Yeah. But they're out there thinking, that they're going to go. It's like,
I'm going to train you around for basketball.
Dude, no, man, just play other sports. And it's get well-rounded, and it'll make you tougher anyways.
Look at how many football players in the NFL, kickers, are from soccer backgrounds. Yeah. And then they find out, holy shit! All I got to do is go kick a ball, and I get paid $1 million.
Although we have like 2,000 kids in our enrollment, the pool to pull from football is so small.
Yeah, it really is.
It's because we have a huge soccer program there. Yeah, we're a lot of Hispanics. Same thing with cross country. It's huge.
Our cross country team's very big,
and they're good too. Yeah, and same thing with track is because there's so many kids that go out for it. Right. And then baseball is a huge thing. So we have like 1 or 2 baseball players now because they all want to focus on baseball. Yeah. Because they all want to go to we just had the kid got signed Austin Roberts. So now they're all going to go to the NFL.
Yeah. Shit, better
yeah. And Austin's a special kid. He was a better kid when he played with us. And I want him at quarterback because he can throw the ball far. Right. But and I know his dad really well. And his dad put in the work. So it's like if you're a father or a parent, even a mom, I'm not saying fathers, and you're not getting your kid that extra work, don't get mad when he doesn't go to the next level. Right. It's people don't realize like the kid Omari. And then even the work you guys put in, like people don't realize that you can't just take your kid to football practice and then expect him to go to fucking D1.
Oh yeah, no, we flew to Ohio for camps and shit.
There's a lot of extra stuff that goes into that. Yeah. People always say, "Well, it's your job to get him recruited." No, it's not. You know how much I get paid for this? Yeah. Like, no, we're not at Odessa, Texas, and it's my job to coach your kid. Yeah. I'm not getting paid $80,000 a year to sit behind this desk and get your kid recruited.
This is the third thing in my life right now.
Yeah. And if it's my job to get your kid recruited, how come he has a 2.0 right now? Yeah. I can't do nothing. I'm a paraeducator. I work at the school. I can't spend all day doing this, But it's just a misconception with high school coaching and stuff. And, we're, I hate bashing our district because it's not all their fault, but we don't get paid a lot for coaching. No. And
especially comparatively to a lot of other schools.
It's a whole percentage thing. Like we get a stipend. Some like Woodland gets a percentage, so that guy makes like $7,000 a year, and that's way more than I make. And we kick their ass every year. Well, we got them this year though in preseason. They're good too. Yeah. But I get guys who want to coach coming from these other bigger schools, and I'm like, well, how much is a stipend? I tell them, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna look around. I'm gonna shop around. I'm like, I can tell you right now, dude, anywhere you go, the Whitney girls JV softball coach makes twice what I make.
Jesus Christ.
And then that's why parents, it really upsets me when they talk about like, oh, you're only doing this to feed your ego, or do you realize that I probably get paid 25 cents an hour for the work I put in here? I don't get paid for spring and summer and all that. I get paid from August, whatever we start is August like 3rd or whatever, to whenever the playoffs are over.
And that's beyond not only all the work you're putting in there, but all the time off, because it's not like you just clock in and clock out. You're at home going over a new place to do and watching game film. I see it.
Well, that's the thing. Like a lot of parents don't realize is that I'm not like your average person where I can do one thing and then I go home and my always thing is like drink a box of wine and watch TV. Like
right.
The chance I get to watch TV is because it's on when I'm doing something.
Right.
I just finished my master's program, so I do have some free time. But there was times when I went to work all day and then football practice, try to squeeze a workout in if I could, make dinner, do laundry, do all that stuff, and then get to my night job where I had to do homework, watch game film, and do the rosters and all that stuff. There's times where I'm in class and my guy didn't need my help from it. I'm trying to watch the plays for the next week.
Right.
I'm trying to, and people don't realize that, but they want to nitpick and say, "What I don't know what I'm doing."
Right. And I think that is because this is something I definitely want to talk about because I've witnessed it. There is a problem with like parent culture in sports, obviously, but especially in football and in our, and nobody take this the wrong way, but like parents have been a pretty consistent problem because they don't know the process of it. And I actually talked about this in my new video that's up on my horror channel if you guys want to go check that out. But a main message from that movie that I was talking about was that the sort of, well, not my kid attitude, and a prime example is I witnessed it. We had one kid on our team. We were doing our Saturday practices where we warm up, throw the ball around, and then watch game film, and we're doing our stretches, and he's saying some pretty awful racist shit to some of the players, and you called him out on it. You're like, hey, that's not fucking allowed here. You need to bounce. And an hour later, the mom comes back, and she's talking shit to you and yelling at you and saying all this shit. And I'm just like standing there watching you, like listen to all this. And I'm just thinking like, I would fucking drop kick this lady. There are kids out there calling people racist slurs and saying all this shit, and then the parent's going to just, well, couldn't have done that because he's my kid.
Wouldn't have done that.
And it is sort of that, like, parents are so quick to just blindly defend their kids because, they're my son or my daughter would never. And it's like, no, yeah, they would.
Well, like, one thing that gets me now is with this whole coronavirus thing going on, is you see all these parents on Facebook and stuff just bitching and complaining. School needs to start again. I ain't having these wild kids at home and yada yada. I can't do this new math and and why they're acting like this? And I'm ready to kill these fucking kids. If they're acting like that in front of you, how do you think they are?
What do you think
with a teacher? With some little small teacher who's 23 years old that it's just her first job.
Right.
And she's trying to be your kids who won't get off their phone, who are being thugs, who are sitting saying, I need my phone to talk to so-and-so. My mom might call. And bullshit. Yeah. If it's an important, the office will call.
Call the school,
And they want to claim they know their rights and all this stuff. And the funny thing is before, my whole purpose on going back to college was to get my credential so I can teach high school and one day take the head coaching job over.
Right.
Well, I ended up being I didn't even need that. I was the first guy in 35 years that got the job without having to be credential. But I was going to finish my education anyways,
Right.
So I did. But until I started working on campus every day, I wanted to be a teacher, a teacher at the high school. And even if I wanted to do weights, my whole thing, but if it wasn't, it's something else. And then I started working on campus, and I was like, I'm good.
I'm good off the shit.
I'm going to get fired for smacking some kid because these kids are ridiculous the way they talk to people. And their parents have no idea. Yeah. Because they refuse to believe their kids act that way. And I was the same way, too. I think when I seen, I'm sure it was Titus. He's always a fucking knucklehead. But until I think it was at the Westmore.
The middle school.
Yeah, he was acting a fool. Then I walk on campus, and he's walking around like he's fucking his thing to do.
Yeah.
Why aren't you in class? And he was just freaking out because I told him I was going to show up.
I remember that day.
But I was...
Y'all were supposed to be going out of town.
I was always like one of those guys where I was like, my kid wouldn't act like that.
You wouldn't... Yeah, because you don't see it.
I saw this motherfucker walking around campus.
Yeah.
Get in the car. We're going home today.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I was going to Reno for a show.
Yeah, I remember because and it's so funny because, I'm one of those people who, like, I think there are certain... It's such a hard thing to deal with, right? Because, like, there are things that the school maybe doesn't do right, sure. But there are things that they're giving these kids too much fucking leeway. Yeah. Where, these kids take advantage of shit like that. There's been so many walkouts where I asked kids, like, hey, what are we walking out for? And they're like, I don't know.
See that close.
Yeah, but it's framed as this, we're all in the fight, standing up for this. And in reality, half the kids are just like, I don't know, I'm going to go smoke weed over here. Like, they don't give a fuck. They just know we're walking out of class. Yeah, and, like, there's now it's getting to the point where you can't, a kid could stand up and call a teacher a fucking cunt bitch, and the teacher's just supposed to be like, well, Jeremy, maybe can you not say that? Because you can't even suspend a kid for doing that anymore.
No, it's bad.
It's crazy to the point where, like, what are you gonna do when these kids start like taking flight on teachers? Like, you continue to. It's all about accountability, and I'm telling you, high school kids are the most up their own ass people on this planet Earth. Yeah. If you tell them that their shit don't stink, boy, do they already know. And so it's like you're feeding that fire and telling them, like, no, you're right. Anything you do, you will not be held accountable for. And it's scary. Yeah, it's fucking terrifying.
One of the worst things with coaching, and I tell kids, like, why would you do that in class? They ain't gonna do nothing, coach.
You don't do nothing? Yeah.
Like, well,
they're openly admitting to you. Yeah. And then the funniest thing to me is that then parents come to you expecting you to punish them.
Oh, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
Can you make him run extra practice? I know.
No, that's not my fucking job.
That's a you and him problem. I'm not punishing him for stuff that doesn't,
And then the teachers, too. Like, some of the teachers want you to hold them accountable. And I understand that from their aspect because they must be getting desperate going, fuck, I can't even hold these kids accountable at this point. But at the same time, like, that's something that needs to come from the top because you can't do it. You can make them run and shit. That's fine.
It's the whole, I always use it's the whole wait till dad gets home. And teachers use that, like, I'll tell your coach. And every these kids now, it's go ahead.
I don't give a fuck.
I know the problem is I'll punish a kid, and then he goes someone tells his parents, well, they make me do extra running.
Yeah, they leave out part of the story.
Like, so then it's a whole thing like, I don't need to deal with this shit, So I'm more quick to just tell people, just leave. I don't need you in my program.
Bounce.
Even though they sign contracts and all this, it doesn't mean nothing. No.
They're not going to take you to court for a class
action. Well, no, it's like
lawsuit.
the parents will sign these agreements, and then they're all for it. But when I have to enforce these rules, no, wait a minute. What do you mean? And then it becomes, well, his dad signed it, not me. Or like, oh my God, man, like,
right.
So just after a while, I'm just like, dude, I just won't play you. If your parent gets mad, then get mad at me. Right. And when I walk off the field, I tell him I'm done coaching right now, so talk to me Monday.
Right. It's just crazy to me because, like, I definitely was a bit of a shithead in my early years. I was on behavior chart and all that. But it's just crazy to me that, like, back then the scariest thing you could hear was like, I'm gonna call your parents, and it was like, holy fuck, I better not, and you'd sit down and you'd start crying in class, and please don't call my mom, don't call my dad. Now the kids will hand you the phone. Yeah, they don't give a shit.
They'll be like, let's call them because they're gonna
be like, please get them down here. I want to watch them yell at you, So yeah, it's definitely a scary time. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just it's definitely weird. But so before we wrap this up, we'll get into one last thing. We talk about you working at the school and working a night job, which both are with people with disabilities. You're a paraeducator and what are we, personal assistants, I think, in support of home care, whatever you call it. Where I guess along the lines with the other things we talked about, where did you sort of find that field of work? Because it is an interesting field. I've met a lot of different people in this field, and the ways people find out about it and get hired on is so diverse, I guess.
I was working at the Boys Ranch like I talked about in Nevada, and then California passed a bill where they wouldn't keep none of the kids in detention facilities. So although we weren't with bars and and barbed wire and all that stuff,
it's more like holes.
Well, no, it was just we were out in the desert, 20 miles in the desert. So that was, they kind of said, well, the kids don't want to run, and you're kind of restraining them from going anywhere because it's so far out and there's nothing but desert there. Right. So that's kind of justified as a detention facility. So they started laying off coaches. They called us coaches then. Right. And then as they dwindled down to less and less, because they were pulling all the California kids out, and 90% of the kids were California kids. Right. They were just laying people off, and I was one of the last ones to get laid off. So I was just at home doing nothing. I was getting, unemployment and stuff, but unemployment was getting ready to run out. Right. And so my sister goes, hey, I'll send in resumes for you. So go ahead, send them in. So she started sending them in this place called Southside Arts Center. Called me for an interview. This was before the internet was a freaking huge thing, so I didn't think to research it or nothing. Right. I went in for an interview. I talked to the people. They loved my resume, even though my sister made it. I was like, oh yeah, it's great.
Like, yeah.
I always do that.
Those are my skills.
Yeah. So they interviewed me and everything, and I remember halfway through the interview, this girl busts through the door and throws a freaking tantrum. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, well, so do you have a problem with things like that? I was like, well, what's this job for? She was like, you don't know what the job's for? I was like, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I said, no, my sister filled out my stuff. And they kind of laughed, and we talked a bit, and she's like, well, so would you be interested in doing this? And I was like, well, I definitely wouldn't mind giving it a shot and seeing how it works. And I was thinking, I just need a fucking job. Like, I don't give a shit. I was paying at that time $13 an hour. Was a pretty good salary.
I'm thinking it's a full-time job, yeah.
I was thinking, shit, I was making more at the ranch. I'm thinking, that's pretty good fucking money.
Yeah, to find this quick, too.
Yeah, so I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And then I remember even that day driving in, I was thinking, man, should I just not go? I'll find another job.
Right.
Something else. And I said, I'm going to go give it a day. I went a day, and it was awful. I hated it.
Yeah. Day programs are, for those of you who don't know, are the fucking worst.
Oh, it was rough. And then I worked another day, didn't like it. And then I met my friend on there named Anton, who was a pretty cool dude, man. And I started hanging out with him. And then I met another lady named Pam, another girl named Tracy. And we started being friends and kind of hanging out. And they were just showing me how things work and how things go. And then I got placed with my client, whose name is Darren, who's actually... His mom was the president of the owner, new company I work at, with the new company I work at. And Darren was awesome. I loved working with him. I was getting exposed to doing facilitated communication. And it was cool, man. I worked there for about 2 years, and then she decided to open up her own place and asked if I would come to Darren and what would it take. Well, at this point, with the Southside, I worked in the Passage program, which was 1-to-1.
Yeah.
But I had 3 clients. Mm-hmm. And then we had another lady there. You ever heard that the Dane Cook thing when he says that there's always a friend in the group that's a douchebag?
Fucking Brian's coming.
But it was the Karen one.
Yeah.
Fucking Karen was that one.
Yeah.
And this lady's name was Karen too, as you know.
Yes, I know all too well.
This staff we had named Karen, and she worked with a really high functioning client, and we'd go in to have these meetings about talking about our stuff on it was like a fucking Tuesday. We had to be there at 4:00. Like just which sucks anyways.
Weird, yeah.
We were talking about it, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, it was so rough today. I mean, when we were sewing and doing our knitting stuff, she was trying to manipulate me and getting a soda." I'm like, "Yeah, I had to restrain somebody, and somebody threw shit on my car."
Yeah, I'm like, Susan drop kicked me in the fucking mouth, and
I'm like, but I'm really
Chris
sad
beat up a girl in the store.
Yeah, your biggest thing was a fucking Coke. She wanted a Coke, and you didn't want to give it to her.
Yeah,
she couldn't wait an hour. I was trying to pull one guy off another one. A girl was taking her clothes off, and the guy's wiping shit on my window.
Yeah,
but and so they would always admonish me and punish me for saying those things. But fuck it, I don't care. Like, I had a hard fucking day. We're getting paid the same.
Yeah, and you're dealing. No, that's how it was when I worked a day program. I won't name it just because of how bad shit got.
I know it had an impact on your life. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it had a huge double impact on my life. But yeah, I had 3 1-to-1s on paper, but in reality, I had about 6 or 7 clients at once, which is super not okay. Yeah. And there would be people who had 1 or 2 clients who were 90. Yeah, and their biggest thing was, oh man, Linda's crying, and I'm over here like, okay, Kyle just fucking stabbed me in the chest with his fingers and gashed me open, and Kelly just ripped an earring out of my fucking ear. But I'm glad you can't deal with someone crying. Yeah. It is that sort of shit where that field's so interesting. I think specifically more along the lines of day programs. Yeah. Is they do just kind of like hire anybody. Like when I came to CLO, like they checked my experience and everything, and I obviously I had like 5 or 6 years experience working with people.
Well, see, there's a difference between day programs and supported living. They're different. But when I was so frustrated out there, I remember Darren's mom had called me. She's like, "I need to talk to you," and I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" She's like, "Well, I'm going to pull Darren out of the program."
Right.
I was like, "Fuck!" It's one of the biggest highlights of my day is like hanging out with him because he's just awesome guy. And she said, "But we want to know what would it take to get you to come over and work with him at his home." And I said, "Well, if you give me my phone, stop at the same pay, I'll be there tomorrow." I told her I'll go turn in my 2 weeks right now. Yeah. And she's like, "Done." Nice. So I went and drove in the office and said, "Hey, I want my 2 weeks."
I'm out.
Fucking dude, he's like, "Yeah, I kind of knew that when she called me and told me she pulled him there now." I was like, "Fuck this place, dude."
But you do sort of build that rapport, I think, sometimes with certain clients specifically. No matter the way, like I had a client who I worked at the place that impacted my life. I worked there 3 different times because I left and came back, and each time I somehow ended up with my client Ricky. And man, he was hard to deal with. He was a lot. He walked around screaming all day because he had birds at his house and like wanted to replicate it. But no matter what, dude, like no matter how hard he was to deal with, I fucking loved that guy, man. And I always like felt bad for his home situation or seeing him with other staff who just didn't care because I was like, fuck, dude, like he's he's such a nice dude, and it's not his fault, you know.
Yeah. And well, there's a reason why they put certain people with one-to-ones.
Yeah.
And when you see them not getting the one-to-one care, they're just there. They're just existing. And my thing is always with one-to-one clients. I know people are probably tripping out. Man, he was just talking about wrestling and football, cussing his mind out. Now he's talking about getting people with disabilities. Whenever you have a guy who's working or is one-to-one, and you have another person who's one-to-one, they get funded differently.
Yeah.
They get funded to have one person care.
Right.
So if I'm caring for two people, where's the rest of that money going? Because it's not going in my pocket.
It's going in the company's
pocket. So you
should
either need to pay me for doing double job or give me back to a one-on-one.
Yeah.
But there's no union for it. I mean, there's a whole big thing, but it happens so much where you know they'll be he's a one-to-one, needs one-to-one care, but we're gonna give you 3 people.
We're gonna have you with you know, like
so
I remember days where I'm like taking 5 clients to the movies, and it's basically like slapping a bunch of horses in the ass and having them run different directions.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
How the fuck am I supposed to handle all this?
And none of them realize it until management has to take your spot for the day.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, well, we need to do something different. I can't.
Yeah.
You can't, man. You have a fucking master's degree.
Yeah.
You better figure this shit out.
You were taught how to do this shit. Yeah.
This is why, like, I never believe that you should hire people outside the field for those administrative positions, because they don't.
It's a business.
Yeah, for them, it's all like, well, we can do this, and you should do this, and you should do this. You don't know.
Do it.
Because the person we deal with, I have a kid right now named Kenny who's autistic, but he's not autistic like Jacob is.
Yeah.
Or like he's a person, and he has different characteristics. And if I brought up in a household where it's okay to walk around and hug people,
yeah, then
I should be treated differently than this guy who you can't touch people.
Yeah.
You know, but they want to group them. Well, this is the way people with autism act. No, they're not.
No.
I'm a freaking
you and me act different.
Yeah, we act differently. It's like people are characters. They have a disability, they have things, but they have characters, they have traits that make them who they are. And you can't just treat the person like everybody with autism is these characters. Look, the book says right here they have these 25 characteristics. Like,
right,
it doesn't matter. That's a character or a trait of autism.
It is part of
but
it.
But you take in the human aspect of the way they were raised.
Right.
Like, there's some people who until they're in their 40s and they're treated like an infant.
Yeah.
Their parents treat them like an infant.
Yeah, and I can't.
There's other parents who are like, no, you're gonna man up and you're
adult.
gonna fucking do this shit.
Yeah.
And they're treated differently, so you can't treat everybody the same. And that's what happens with these one-on-ones. They just throw them together. Yeah. And you know the office is sitting there and money's going somewhere because it's not going in our pocket.
Yeah.
You know?
And it is hard when they're grouped together because, like you said, like you'll have one guy who is over there, kicking some lady in the store in the back of the head, and then you have someone else who just like, like the way I explain it too is like, a recent problem I've had with some clients was that was explaining to a staff like there are some people who are aggressive because they're spoiled and they know that aggression is a way to get what they want, and then there are some clients who are aggressive because they can't just comprehend, but all they know is if I punch you, you're gonna feel bad as well, like I do. But those things can't be handled the same because one of them just doesn't understand, and you have to try and help communicate like, hey, no, that's not how we handle that. Maybe here's a better way. But on the other hand, this one, they know the reason they're doing that is because it's wrong and it'll hurt you. Yeah. So you can't tell them, well, no, let's handle it this way. They already know, bitch. They know a better way to handle it. They're just choosing not to. So instead, you have to say, hey, that ain't gonna work like that. You want to do the stuff you like to do, then maybe don't punch people in the mouth.
No, it's definitely, and that's why when they rotate staff around so much, it's so hard on the person. We're not really servicing them properly the right way. Right. Especially when you have a person who clicks with somebody the right way. And it happens more so in the home that the people we work with, we try to make them live this perfect life that we can't even live. Right. You're going to eat at this time. You're going to eat this. You're going to have no carbs. These are bad for you, so you can't have soda, even though I'm going to have a big gulp right next to you. Right. You can't have pizza, even though I'm going to go eat pizza while you have a salad and, because we as society think these things aren't healthy or these things aren't. So that person, we're going to force them to eat that way. Someone we're in charge of. Yeah, or you get somebody who's the opposite, who's over a health nut, and they're like, I had this fucking guy, man, and I tell Joan this all the time. She even repeats the story. We had this guy come in, and he's one of these fucking herbs and fucking weird shit. Yeah. So he thought Kale it was and all this shit, and everything can be fixed by your diet and all this stuff. So he had somewhere up his ass. He got this thing where if Darren ate blue algae every day, which is a pill, it was going to solve his problems. Boom, there's the fucking riddle for autism. Yeah, it'll fix autism. He found the fucking golden goose right there, and I mean, let's brand this stuff and market it. But so I'd have to break this pill open and give it and force it down his throat every day, and of course it did nothing. But then he had to eat this freaking bread that was like nuts and seeds and shit on it that he fucking hated, and just all this shit we'd have to make for him and all this stuff like that. And I would tell Jonah, and because he'd have all these behaviors and these outbursts, and I tell him, listen, man, if I couldn't have a cheeseburger or masturbate, I'd be punching fucking people too. You know,
right?
Because you're taking everything I like away, and for what reason? Because you think?
Because you think it?
Because you think that, you know, and. So she tells that story all the time because it fucking makes her laugh. And Joan, Joan, she's pretty crazy.
Well, it's true though. Like, why are we expected to like take those things, the human emotion away from them? They like shit they like, and it's just a matter of there's a balance to it, right? You want to let them enjoy the things they like to do and eat the things they like and all that, but you also want to protect them from like a client I had recently. I wasn't trying to take away the food he likes to eat. I was trying to help him find a more healthier portion version, because if I didn't, his biggest thing was he would just go in the kitchen and eat until the fucking sun came up. He just, all night, he would just, whenever he felt like it, I'm going to eat a whole bag of Cheetos right now, a family-sized bag. He's going to die. So my job is to say, okay, you can have Cheetos, but with your dinner. So here's your dinner. I'll give you a portion, a serving of Cheetos, and then we fucking put them away, and then that's it. It's not being like, no, you can only eat fucking grass and water. You know, it's me going, here's a healthier way to do that.
Deprive from everything,
and then every once in a while I would try to find healthier options. Like, okay, if we're going to have chicken and mashed potatoes again tonight, maybe let's try cauliflower mashed potatoes. And so there is that bit of healthiness, but he also still gets the barbecue chicken or whatever they like to eat, and I think some people are too quick to go to the extreme either way, which is, oh no, that's just them, so let them do whatever they want, or no, they have to be like drill sergeant mode. It's like, no, just treat them how you would want to be treated.
You have to be that conscious, their voice for them, because they don't understand that maybe having a box of ice cream right now isn't a good idea.
Isn't a great
You have the other one, hey, let's just have a one serving and we're good,
right?
But they don't have that in their mind. They want to just keep eating because they like it. And you gotta understand, people with a disability don't like a lot of, they don't get a lot of things that in their life that they like, that they enjoy, because they have these disabilities. One thing that people see a lot of times is them slapping themselves in the head. And they think it's some kind of SBI, some self-interest behavior or something. I'm like, generally what it is, they're slapping themselves in the head because they're trying to release the endorphins in the brain. And to give them that sense of euphoria. Because they're in either pain or they just can't deal with it. That's what they've been taught. If I slap my head, eventually I'm going to feel like a buzz. We've all been popped in the head and you're like, holy shit.
You're like, whoa.
Whoa, what the fuck's going on?
It's about stimulation.
So they don't realize those things, so they try to slap my head and they try to stop them. What are you doing? We got to teach it. We got to replace that behavior with something. They're going to slap their head, get a high five up. And,
hell yeah.
Just do things. But a lot of that stuff just falls back on the staff that they don't want to put in the time. And they want to put in the time and effort. And it honestly, it's grueling sometimes to do those things because you have to do it every time. But that's what you're getting paid for. And like I tell people, when I work with somebody with a disability, my goal is to get them well enough where they don't need me in their life. Where I can move on to the next person.
I should eventually not be.
I should eventually not be. I shouldn't be just the person that does this for you this day till somebody else gets here.
We're not babysitters.
You should be working on things to get them better to progress through life. Have nothing in life is normal, but a normal as life as possible. I know this feels a red flag word. But
something fulfilling.
Something at least to be able to do things for yourself and live, live a life. Be independent and have things and not have somebody make decisions for you.
Right.
But we forget that they're humans.
Right.
And it's a fucking shame. But that's just in general. I get this all the time where people baby talk to people with disabilities.
I hate it.
Fucking God, it just pisses me off. And
I got into that with a parent recently, and I think that's what sort of led to some issues. Because parent culture exists in the field we work in as well, and I think the parents, I watch the way the parents communicate with the client, and they baby talk, and if they do something they're not supposed to, then it's that's just how they are, and well, let's teach them how to not be. My outlook is I'm 21. Most clients every client I've ever had has been far older than me. These are grown adults. Now, should you get up in their face and scream at them? No. You shouldn't do that to really any human being. But if they steal something from me, I'm not going to go, okay, little butt. I'm just going to go, hey, dude, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do it, Do what you got to do right now.
Anytime you get a parent who's and it sucks because there is some great parents in this field. The guy I work with now, Paul, is amazing.
Paul's fantastic.
He's amazing. But there's some parents that they raise them from when they're little, and not to get too much into it, but subconsciously, they think they're the reason why. They blame themselves for the kid having a disability.
There's some level of guilt there.
So they baby them the whole time.
Yeah.
And they never stop doing that.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes these people with disabilities have the mentality of a 4-year-old, doesn't mean we have to treat them like a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
That just means they can't process things a certain way.
Right.
And I get into this with CeeLo all the time because I would take Darren to the park and he'd get on the swings and stuff. And they'd be like, well, is that an activity an adult will do? I was like, it depends because I had a great ass time on the fucking swing. I was
I'm fucking chilling on the swings.
I was rolling backwards and I was telling them to push me and everything. I was like, but, there's just sometimes that, people, they want to do stuff that's socially acceptable, but then again, they don't want to treat them like the age they are.
Right.
One of the kids I work with named, I won't leave his name out, but I worked with him for a while, and he loved music. Mm-hmm. So, like, he listened to the Pussycat Dolls and all the stuff I exposed him to. And he'd be in the car singing, all going all crazy. Well, he went to the Walmart and I had him pick out a couple movies, and he picked out Tenacious D, Pick a Destiny. Mm-hmm. He freaking loved that movie. So it's on his...
It's very visually, stimulating.
And his mom comes in, and he's sitting there screaming, "Fuck you!" She's like, "Oh my God, what's he listening to?" I said, he picked it out.
Yeah.
And she went and told the office, and the office was like, "He's an adult. That's what he wants to listen to, And he's sitting there fucking singing and dancing away. I'm like, he's a freaking 30 years old.
Why does he have to listen to Wheels on the Bus?
Yeah, but they gave him. They're like, you know what? You're right. He's an adult. It's his house.
Yeah.
So, but you don't always have parents like that. You know that they want a baby, and they're at this age in their life, they're watching Clifford the Red Dog. They're like 30 years old.
Well, like that's the thing too is where like I'm an adult. I love animated movies. Coraline's one of my favorite movies of all time. Into the Spider-Verse I think is one of the most beautiful films in animation. But a lot of the times when they watch those, it's not because they have the mind of children and or whatever. It's just because they are visually stimulating. But that doesn't mean they can't enjoy like something like Tenacious D, where it's very colorful and bright and shit. The other day with my client, we were watching Wrestlemania. Yeah, and he was sitting there, yelling because guys are jumping off ladders and shit.
Well, and like with that is, it's one thing to sit there and watch, even Frozen or things like that. Yeah. But when a kid's brought up, all he watches is fucking Baloo. Or fucking, the fucking Red Dog and, all these the fucking PBS channels and all this shit. When that's all they've been exposed to, of course that's what they want to watch.
That's all they know.
That's all they know.
Yeah.
So you have to expose them to
you have to try stuff out.
Even if it's a new cartoon or something, even if it's something new, just expose them to different stuff and let them
trial and error.
Yeah, like let them be exposed to things in life, and it's just a shame, man, that we do the guys we work with. They always get marked as mentally disabled or disabled when they're just challenges that they have to face, and our job is to help them get through that. But a lot of times, whether it's budget-wise or mismanagement-wise or just lazy staff-wise, we don't put them in a position to overcome those challenges. We actually enable them to stay where they are or get worse, and that's what we don't want to do. But, like I said, I don't want to bash people in management and companies, but it is a hard job to manage 8 different houses, or a whole campus full of people.
So how could you not be like disassociated from every single person?
And then you learn this because you went from day programs to house, and I used to tell this all the time. When you're working at it, like I did the day program thing for a while, and we follow their IEPs by the book, or I try to. Right. But then when you take them to their parents, and the first thing they do is do something they're not supposed to do.
Yeah, you're like, what the fuck?
And it's getting reinforced all night till the next day, and then you come and gotta be the asshole. Yeah. Oh, you wonder why he tried to bite me today. Yeah. Because I wouldn't let him do what
the parents.
Yeah, what the parents do when our book says we can't let them do that. Right. So it's all that stuff that falls into one when, if their whole life, everything's in line and everything's in tune with what it's supposed to be, they have a chance. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I know damn well when everything is different, they have no chance to succeed.
There's no shot. Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much for joining me on this episode.
Oh, please. I know it probably went about 4 hours. But
this is definitely well, I wanted to have you on though. I think there is a lot of interesting aspects to your life, and it is so different, especially something I notice in wrestlers specifically. They're always so multi different, but yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm sure you'll be on again.
Anytime.
Usually, so at the end of my guest interviews, I just give my guests a couple seconds to plug whatever they want, social media and all that stuff.
As far as my social media goes, on Facebook, it's Gabe Jimenez or Ugly Dojo. And I meant to write all this stuff down too, but I forgot. TikTok, it's Dojo Boss, or no, it's Ugly Dojo. Twitter, it's Ugly Boss 61, and Instagram, it's Ugly Dojo, I believe.
I think so. I mean, I'll
all my stuff's attached to Salem's, so
and
just
I'll
find me on there.
I'll put all this stuff in the description below. You guys can go check it out. But thank you guys so much for joining us here on the podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff. I just put out a new video, so go ahead and go check that out on my horror channel Around the Campfire. Hope you guys have a great day, and most importantly, thanks for stopping by.